In preparing this, this event, I was stumbling over some famous words, and I would like to call it famous first words, because famous last words is not a pretty thing to do, isn't it? This is a son of this town, Carl Gustav Jung, who tells us the following: myths do not propagate any old events, but only those which generally express lasting and reverberating thoughts of mankind. And this is the topic of our evening. It is myths and how they are important to us. And our myth is the myth of Lilith. Now God goes ahead anyway. He creates Adam, and he creates as a first woman Lilith. They are of different character, are they? A very different character. Because Adam is a typical man, so he likes to eat, and then he likes to sleep, and then he likes to, you know, thank you. And Lilith is almost the opposite of that. She likes to talk. She's charming. She even is talking to God himself, and God feels entertained by the stories. You know, they're exchanging the views of the world, of creation. And what happens then is that in a weak moment, God tells Lilith his name. But this is a dangerous thing to do in biblical circumstances, because to know the name of God means to be very powerful. Anyway, it happened, and Lilith comes home. And what does Adam tell her? This is not invented, it's in the Midrash, by the way. There's no invention. So, she comes home, and Adam tells her, "What have you done? What have you done during the day?" She says, "I had a nice talk with God." And he says, "I'm hungry." Or,
"Where have you been so long?"
"Where have you been so long? You have to lay down, spread your legs, and I will do what I like to do most." But Lilith, who is now very powerful, says no. If somebody lays down, it's you. And if somebody is upon you, it's me. And Adam said, "No, this is filthy here. I don't want to lay down. You are the girl, and I'm the boy." And he calls to God. "God, you are the ruler. You invented Lilith for me, didn't you?" And God says, "Lilith, I mean, we had some, you know, talk, but could you just for a moment do as if, and you have to obey him." Now, what happens then is that Lilith, who knows the word of God, speaks the name of God, and she has wings, and she flies away. Now, this is a tricky situation for God, because he didn't intend that this would happen, and it's also a tricky situation for Adam, even if it does not reflect the situation. So but now she's gone. See what you have done. She's gone. You bring her back. And God is obedient to Adam, because he sends 3 angels to hold her up. And these 3 angels fly to, say, the west, and they meet her over the Red Sea. There they ground her, you know, like aeroplanes of the military forces ground somebody else. And they have a talk. And the angels say, "You have to come back, because it's God's will." Lilith says, "No, I can't stand neither the one nor the other." And the angels say, "Okay, then you will be cursed." Lilith, "What?" And they say, "You will be cast to the underworld. You will have to bear to life 100 children a day, and you will have either kill them yourself, or they will be killed Your next lovers will be demons, also dwelling in the realm of the underworld, and you will be their servant. And Lilith thinks about this, and then she says, yes, I will do this. And so the story ends, and another story begins. This is Lilith as a god of revenge, maybe. And Lilith as a god who's waiting at dusk at the doors of the houses in Mesopotamia and in a state we now call Israel. And she's waiting to get in. And when she crawls in, she goes to the baby beds. And there she sucks off the souls from the thumb. And this is how Lilith was made a god of, no, not a god, a demon, killing children and haunting humanity or humankind. That's the story. Veronika came across this topic, and you have to tell this yourself because this is such a astonishing story. Please.
Okay, so I want to make. So my paintings and drawings are very private, and I paint and draw always what I feel and what I live. So I would like to introduce my very old drawing, which is on the floor, and which describe the story about Lilith, position of her before when she left Adam. And I don't know, maybe this is 2009, and I develop a little bit from this time, and I start to paint her 2011. This painting is from 2011, and I didn't know about her until this time, and so this is a very special story. I don't know if I can explain this story fully.
You're welcome.
It's very private. It's very hard to explain it. But when I paint this landscape, because I work very slowly and I start with landscape and I have a lot of layers, I start only with autumn landscape with forest, and there was open heaven and any waters around, and I add some another moments, and I paint some special space, and it was cloistery. So I framed this landscape to the frame, which looking like a cloister. And after I put there the person, the young lady, which she was standing in front of window, and she looking outside and it was like that she looking for something, and she's alone. And after this theme was, I changed this theme, and I put the fire on this lady, and she burned. And after this is, all things are inside. And after I put the very special black shape, and I covered this lady, and it was like a pink glasses. This painting was like the mirroring of the glasses, that you saw only the shape of the glasses. And after, when I was in my studio, I saw that this painting needs something more. And I paint this lady with very special cap. And it was very quickly and very spontaneously. And I paint this moment, and I didn't know what it means. I was very surprised. And after this painting, I left in my studio, and because in Prague I collaborate with poets and I like literature. My friend poet, she told me, do you have something about Lilith? I have some poem, and I would like to use your painting or drawing for some magazine, for article. And can you find something in your studio? And I told her, okay, I can find something for you. And another day I had a meeting with one friend, and he came with me to my studio. And when we entered to the studio, he started to cry, "Oh, you have Lilith here." And I didn't know that I have Lilith in my studio. And he discovered to me that I paint her.
And the man.
Yeah.
Underneath.
Yeah.
She succeeded in this picture.
So it was very special coincidence. And in the end, I used this painting and also this drawing. So the poem of this poet was illustrated by two positions of Lilith. The first was the position when she was very, there was some humiliation. And the second moment when she get a power to do something with the man. And because I have very special experience with my paintings, that when I paint something, it happens to me. And it was really true that I start with Lilith to live her life.
So this is a very personal story then?
Yes, it's very personal. Everything is very personal.
You could bring it back to the technical level.
Please do it. Because it's really hard to explain.
Right. What we try to do this evening is to cross, or to make a bridge, to bridge a gap between one, science, economics, and art, which is normally not hard to do if you think about the invisible hand that rules the markets is a somehow artificial project which is evolving.
Is that we are drunk with rationality. Drunk means, and this is how Thomas Aquinas was very critical of being drunk. Thomas Aquinas thought that the highest entity, how should I put it, is reason, that even God is subjected to reason, which is a different topic than from the book of Job, where the topic of the book of Job is whether God is subject to morals. And we know the answer in the book of Job, that he in fact wants to be free even from rules of morals. But Thomas Aquinas condemned drunkenness because you willingly give away reason. My point here is that, you know, it's sober people that get drunk. So
Must be that way.
yeah, you are always sober when you start getting drunk. So the ultimate question here is, why would a rational human being rationally and willingly and consciously enter into a zone in which you give up the usage of reason? So you can give up the usage of reason by intoxicating your brains with other dimensions, such as alcohol or other drugs. And this is well known, and it's even a cliche that does not need any further elaboration. My contribution, or my way of thinking about this, is that you can even get intoxicated by the usage of too much reason to the point where you no longer are reasonable. And this, to me, seems one way of offering a view on our culture, that we got drunk with reason. We take no other arguments except for reasonable ones, or except the arguments of reason, which I think is exactly breaching what Pascal limited the role of reason when he wrote in his Pensées that the first task of reason is to know the limits of reason. In other words, reason will never show you everything there is to know. And we know this even very well from mathematics, from Gödel and from other mathematicians, that there are things that we know that are rationally so, but they can never be proved by mathematics. In other words, the knowledge of mankind is never to be limited to rational. There are other things, such as art, that hold certain messages that we can no longer take because we have become drunk, over-intoxicated with reason. And economics, and I will close here, economics to me here seems to be an exemplar selecta of this sort of view of life, that we only are able to feel, and I use the word feel intentionally, if it's rational. And even in theoretical physics, the most rational, I would say, of sciences today, we know that in physics we have different levels of logic. Certain things that are logical in the quantum space are absurd in the level of daily experience of the, let's call it, the Newtonian space of meters and kilometers and kilograms. And the logic that we experience in our daily intuitive encounter is completely contrary to the logic of how the great theory of relativity operates. So even in logic we are even in physics we're trying to find the theory that unites it all, because intuitively we feel that it's all connected, it must be somehow. But in our brains we can only approach the totality of being by separating it into different categories of logic, otherwise it would not make sense. So what really needs to be asked here is, what is the logic of logic? What is the reason of reason? And this is where art enters. And art and mythology, to me, is how should I put it? A young experience that has not yet been chained by repetitive experience into something reasonable. And this is where the story of Lilith plays such a great example. We brought up in the Christian belief, all of us here in Europe, whether you're Christian or not, doesn't really matter, we all believe the same thing. We actually believe that we human beings are the guilty ones because of the original sin, because we were supposed to behave, blah, blah, blah. But you can see in the story of Lilith that evil or mischief or something that is actually not going according to the plan entered even before we made something wrong. If you're not happy with this, I can even do this perfectly with the word that I heard from both of you, and that's the word alone. Even before Adam or Eve touched the forbidden tree of knowledge of good and evil, God created Adam, but Adam felt alone. And even God said it is not good for man to be alone. And that's why he created Eve. So one way how to read this first, this I think is very important, because there was evil or something that wasn't perfect happened before the fall, which is something that you never hear in theology, because in theology the basic material that in any religion we work with is guilt of us human beings against some deity. But we know, even from the canonic Bible, that there was something that wasn't perfect even before the fall, and that is that Adam felt alone, and it wasn't good. I have a personal theory to explain this, because when God started creating human beings, he also felt alone, and he wanted somebody to have a relationship with. And the problem is that he copied himself exactly in this state of feeling alone, wanting a relationship. So he created a copy-paste being of himself who was also feeling alone and wanting a relationship. And isn't this a very interesting way how to describe our human lives? And also the whole Bible, if you look at it, the whole Bible, now that we start in this beautiful exhibition in the Bible, is really God's attempt to feel a relationship with human beings, but there is something that obscures it, something that does not make it possible. Always. And also vice versa. We also want to be in touch with ourselves or God or however you want to call it, but it is not possible.